Hey everybody, Kevin Duffy here at Gillette Stadium, joined by Patriots beat columnist Karen Guregian. Week 15, season has flown by. This is one of the bigger games on the schedule. Both the Patriots and Steelers coming off what I would say a humiliating loss, particularly for the Patriots, to lose at Miami in that fashion. So they travel to Pittsburgh, where they've had a lot of success. Last year's Week 15 win at Pittsburgh really set the stage for their run to the Super Bowl. So we'll see if this year they can put themselves in a similar position. 3 keys to the game. The first key for the Patriots, Rob Gronkowski got back on track against the Dolphins. He has traditionally just sliced up the Steelers. 110 yards on average in his 6 games against Pittsburgh. He scored 8 touchdowns in those 6 games. Can Gronk continue his hot streak here?
Based on how the Steelers typically play him, I mean, last year they sort of forgot to cover him. It's hard to say because, you know, he was the guy on the field, the last line of defense in that last play. Given some of the fun people have been poking at him, I don't know. Yeah,
that's the key for Gronk, and I know it's a cliche thing to say, to ignore the noise, because they always say that, but he played a great game, and he was put in a position at the end of that game that he shouldn't have been in. I mean, right. Gronkowski should not have been on the field.
And it's not his fault.
So yes, he looked clumsy, but you know what? He would have looked kind of clumsy even in his prime on that play, and most tight ends would look clumsy trying to get an angle on Kenyon Drake on that play. So I think if Gronk can put that part behind him and focus on the positive that he had in that game, I think it absolutely can be a confidence builder. He even said after the game that he felt like he was getting his chemistry back up, and I thought that maybe he was just using the word chemistry where he meant confidence. I think that's a game that really could boost him going forward.
And I also think, again, if Pittsburgh plays their typical style of defense, I think him and Brady will click just like they clicked against Miami. I do.
Yep. Second key for the Patriots, they have stuck with the running game quite a bit. The volume's been there, but Rex Burkhead and Sony Michel combined for 48 carries for 142 yards in the past 2 games. That's about 2.9 yards per carry. So they're not getting it done. The efficiency, it's just they're not putting themselves in good third down situations. They were fortunate last game because Brady converted a lot of 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 9s. I don't know if you can do that against Pittsburgh, which has one of the league's better pass rushes, so they've got to get the running game back on track.
No question about it. They are going to need the balance in this game in particular because the Steelers really have a good pass rush. They lead the league in sacks. They got to get the running game going to set everything else in motion.
Your thoughts on James White's usage? He only had 6 touches in that game, I think. And there's been 3 games this year where he's had 7 or fewer touches. The Patriots have lost all 3. I don't know if that's just a statistical coincidence or you think there's something to that.
He's been so important and a pivotal guy. If he's hurt, you know, maybe that's a reason. We don't know it. He's not on the injury report. Maybe we need to see a little more of my guy, Jimmy.
And the final key for the Patriots, dealing with the Pittsburgh duo of Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster. This year, Antonio Brown's probably still one of the 4 or 5 best receivers in the league, but Smith-Schuster actually statistically has had a better year. He has more catches and almost 200 more receiving yards. So the Steelers really they're one of the few teams in the league that have basically 2 number 1 receivers. So now you have, in past years, the strategy has always been for the Patriots, do everything you can to take away Antonio Brown. Now I don't know if you want to go with that because Smith-Schuster is just as good as Brown is.
I mean, that's going to be really interesting to see how they deploy their cornerbacks. They didn't have the best week last week. They're going to need to step up their game this week. Yeah,
Gilmore typically will take the taller receiver, but he does also play inside a little bit at times. I don't know how much this year he's done that, but when they go 3 receivers that they have James Washington on the field too, Smith-Schuster will move inside so that Gilmore usually won't follow a guy inside. But in base, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Gilmore on Juju, and then that would leave probably Jason McCourty on Antonio Brown with some help. Then you have, J.C. Jackson has been a promising young player, but he really hasn't been put in a position where he's had to cover an elite receiver for an entire game. So I don't know how much Jackson factors into the Patriots' game plan. Midway through that game last week, they pulled McCourty and had J.C. Jackson as number 2 corner in base when the Dolphins had 2 receivers on the field. So I don't know if that's going to be the plan going into this game. I think there's going to be a lot of situations where the Patriots have 3 corners, so it doesn't really matter who's technically number 2 and number 3. The matchups are going to go a long way in deciding who wins this.
Well, again, it might be, who's doing the best on who. I mean, they might have to change it on the fly. I mean, nobody could cover Kenny Stills last week, so we'll see.
Yep. We'll wrap it up there. You can find all our Patriots Steelers coverage at bostonherald.com.